Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity and Love. Incredible guests the world over with amazing insights. They've often been through some sort of transformative journey. We've had a ton of folks who have been through near-death experiences, NDEs, or out-of-body experiences, and others. The record's 5. A doctor in Canada who was even in a plane crash, intricately detailed for the show. We've had a White House physician to the US president, psychologists, therapists, healers of all different types. We've even had the youngest Delta Force operator ever admitted to Delta Force. He studied naturopathy on the side, and many others from 25 countries. We're now booked almost into the end of 2025. We've had over a 500,000 channel visits, so thank you for that. We have a super shy crowd. We're a super small footprint when it comes to visibility, but amazing guests. And no exception to that is our guest coming to us from the UK, originally from Latvia, super science, super philosophy in a way, helping mankind reshape how it approaches the universe, consciousness, just being, especially for newborns, kids, and how we sort of come into our adulthood. There might be a more open way to approach that. But to give her a more formal intro, she's an aviation and space psychologist. She's worked in the past in many amazing spots with a lot of scientists and a lot of astronauts. She was at one point working at the European Astronaut Center. She was at one point the director of the Center for Space Medicine at MSSL. She'll explain where that is at UCL. She's all about, again, integrated medicine, human potential, and the space within as well. I'd like to introduce Dr. IYA WHITELey. Absolutely incredible to have you on board, to be able to just meet you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Michael. Much appreciate the opportunity and just being able to connect in the space and with your audience. And there is just I'm grateful that we have the opportunity and technology, now to connect broader, not just through physical meeting, but also connecting via ether and through the work that you do, because you actually work through this ether space,
Talk to us a little bit about any direction you want to go, but if I give you 5 keywords: compassion, consciousness, science, having to learn to be more open and more ready to get going, or space, or mankind and the galaxy, where would you like to begin? You've had a long journey and you've done a lot of different stuff. Where's best to start with it all?
I think space is a good, very broad definition, and the definition of space for me changed over time. As I guess, a little girl, for me, space was unimaginably strange that it could be infinite. And for me, as I would think about this on the beach, I would feel that it would warp from micro to macro. So I would feel, looking at the sense of grain, and I would see that that's also a sun or a galaxy or a molecule. And within that, there will be even smaller people and bigger galaxies, and then sort of zooming in and zooming out, because it just felt almost painful to see that there will be an empty dark space, an infinite space. And as I start to explore, I feel that I guess science offers a dimension of space that we can explore. And in my experience, it doesn't matter what we do, because it is still an exploration of the same divine space, or investigating qualities of what we are coming into. So we could be making films, we could be, treating children, we could be teaching, we could be making, the smallest component for our technology that we use, or investigating music or stars. It's still an exploration, just of a different dimension. And it feels like it's like an academy of our own, to do an investigation. And it feels like this quality of doing research takes a new tack now, because it is being a researcher or an investigator or explorer, coming kind of from the space domain, meaning exploration of space as astronauts and cosmonauts, then we are here to explore any dimension that we wish, and we still come to ourselves or to within, or hopefully we will dive into that space too. And that's where I guess I don't think it's a circle. I think it's a spiral, that we are weaving together. And that allowed me to see that actually, in order for us to explore space, we still begin within. And no matter how we try to focus out, the focus through all of the situations, through all of the connections, through all the people that we do come back to us, because the situations make us to see that this is all a reflection, whatever is happening. And until we learn to be observers, learn to be investigators, and not just investigators, but curious explorers. And I think that's who we naturally are as children. And then we slightly deviate and forget, but hopefully we return. So, and that's why traveling from, I guess, studying science and then coming back to children and childhood, and also exploring these qualities or recalling, but also seeing it in the new light through our children. And I think that's why we are fortunate to have this rhythm. I guess it's not even a circle, it's a rhythm where children come in to wake us up again to various qualities, so that we could immerse to what we have not relieved or what we have forgotten or something that was not open to us. So to me, it feels children open new doors, new portals, new investigations.
Can you talk to us more about this openness, the line of communication with the universe, or just all that is that's available to each human? How do you describe that a little bit more?
Well, that's quite interesting. I wanted to tap into that from scientific perspective because I felt this is appropriate for us to investigate, and there must be tools on how we can do it. And one of them, or it feels like the aperture or opportunity opens when we are in a situation where we have to be dealing in the moment. And that is, I guess we all face it, but it is more acute in how we perceive in extreme environments, like, for example, pilots making a decision on the spot when something is happening and they have to rework their flight plan and they have to find an alternative landing or maybe alternative route, or maybe there is something unexpected and they have to then come back to flying the plane. So something will jolt them out. And so that is kind of situational awareness. And if you look at, or if I look in traditions, various traditions and I've explored traditions in Eastern traditions through Korean medicine, which I've studied since I was 18. And I studied sound medicine on how it is done by traditions from the East, as well as traditions in North America and South America. And having lived in Australia, I wish I've tapped in more into Aboriginal, how they treat sound, because they also talk about weaving with sound, or lines of the land are weaved with sound. It feels to me that these moments when we, I guess, more faced inwards, and then we let go of concepts and we arrive at a momentary perception that actually takes us out of this linear thinking, or as in science we talked about decision tree, or when we're designing, let's say, aircraft and designing systems, we tell the computer to think of a decision tree. So if this, then that, so like programming. And in some of the cognitive engineering, which is my specialty, there was also assumption that that's how we think, but we don't. We know in the moment, and we know, and it's almost like a space opens for us to accumulate all of our experience and possibly not even ours. But there is an understanding that there is no other way but this way, and we're not making a decision. And when I was studying and working with surgeons making critical decisions on the spot, and that there is a flow, there is a human flow, there is a physiology flow that they cannot pause. It's not a simulation. Like, for example, on the aircraft, you also can't pause unless you're in a simulator. And in that moment, they would make a decision, but if they have to justify to somebody else, they will go back to how they were taught, and they will build a decision tree to sort of backtrack, if you wish. And I love this idea that for some reason, and I like to think about this, why do we have to cancel out the coincidences, right, in order to justify being right, when that was an absolutely core essence of that decision, couldn't have happened in any other way. And it could be perceived a good or bad outcome, but that was the core concept of moving matrix of life that had to happen there, because it has like a ripple effect through all of our life, that we cannot see this design of ether, I guess, and how we impact each other. And only years later, we find out that that's why it happened. And so I guess a lot of us maybe can see the reasoning backwards. But if we think of the really difficult, what we perceive difficult situations, they were actually really fortunate. And they allow us to have a deeper perception, deeper knowing, opening our gifts that we have within. And it's interesting that these professions who do not allow for the word intuitive, in their vocabulary, that they were not making it according to a procedure. They have to justify their thinking, and yet they become more and more humble in their work and as people, because they understand how little they play in this space of what's happening. So they learn to be, so the kind of the experts that really flow in their work, I found, they trust the moment, but they do their best at that particular time without trying to justify or know the outcome. They just come in the moment, and they take everything they have, and they will put themselves into that flow in whatever capacity they can. And I guess they become quieter in justifying why they're doing this. And so, yeah, fascinating.
We should back up to the big picture, because you've worked with pilots, you've gotten your own pilot's license, not like on every single aircraft in the world, but you've worked, again, astronauts, cosmonauts, so that you can better understand, again, what they're facing when they have to perform, and how to design better systems that, allow for better efficiency, better flow. Can you go big picture for us, just places that you've worked, what you're addressing, how your interests have shifted a little bit or a lot over time, and so on?
Mm-hmm. I wanted to understand, where do we get this intuition, or how do we tap into our abilities that are yet not captured by science and yet existed in literature and across cultures. And we know that in traditions that live more closer to the earth, there is always, one or two people who are almost either highly respected or highly shunned from the community. But yet when there is a challenge, people go to that person, and only their belief system allows them to let go. Because if they would have come to this person a moment earlier, they wouldn't have been able to connect. And people that I have spoken who work or interacted with in these, if you wish, unique paths that they take in their life, they don't take the ownership for the healing at all. they are just there as a point or juncture for that person in life, so that they can come and meet themselves. And they're very humble, and they are very, very, almost when you come into them, there is no, that you're allowed to be who you are, you're allowed to be whom you wish to be, and they meet you at the place where you're at. And I found that the more, the closer we get to that state of letting go of concepts, and it feels to me that these extreme environments, by the ones that I studied, from learning to be a pilot, skydiving, rescue scuba diving, and now learning to free dive, martial art, it's all of that, is that when you stop generating an outcome, because as soon as we generate an outcome, we narrow the field of possibilities. It's almost like we're saying, I know better of what should happen. And that restricts the possibilities and, I guess, grounded design. And I found that people in extreme professions, they seem to allow for that possibility more and more as they work. And I wanted to explore that. And first I wanted to see how do pilots make these intuitive decisions, and how to improve on that, if it is at all possible. And what was required is to tap into how they think. And this is where I found out that they don't have linear thinking, that they are actually, thinking about the washing machine, that they forgot to tell their wife that the master is coming today, and they will be, there will be some discussion afterwards of not, forward looking, and yet they were flying the plane and doing that. So once they let go and relax, and they don't have an external observer or judgment, and usually when we let ourselves be and forget that there is an exam, there is a assignment, there is some sort of a checking that will be happening, the life becomes much more joyful, and the decisions become almost weaved intuitively, and things come forward that we, if you wish, knew inside but could never ask because we couldn't imagine. And so by allowing those pilots actually flow in their expression of what was happening, we tapped into their thought process. So the method allows to literally allow them to dive into that space where they can engage all of their sensors. And the more sensors that they can engage, the more flow they allow. And then we could get to the point of why they've actually made a decision. And they would find that they imagined the numbers that were not even there. And that they, and yet if I would have asked them if we didn't have a recording, then they would be absolutely certain that existed, that information existed. And it's interesting because that did play a part, but once they let go, that nobody's checking them, they relax, and we actually pick up the information that helped them make a decision. And based on that, the principles come to crystallize of what they need on the display in order for them to be in that flow and not think, not calculate, but just do what they do well. And so we've improved their decision making, or speed of decision making and calculations, by 200%, which for a fighter pilot, they do a split of a second, right? They're so fast. So I spoke with Ryan Graves, who is the F-18 pilot, and we had a discussion with him. And Ryan would tell me that when the wing of the aircraft would align with another aircraft, so they will be doing training, for example, and he would know by the tip of that wing and how the flow over the wing, what would this pilot do next with that aircraft. And there's no way you could see it with your physical eyes. There's just no way you could do that. And yet, pilots would describe that instant for several minutes. I would have to pause for them to actually put it into words, what they were experiencing. And there is like an infinite flow of information that they could tap in. So that's what got me more interested. And I wanted to see what else I could do. And of course, the next, I guess, most interesting to me at the time was extreme environment, would be, flying in space and touching that. I didn't get to go to space, but I think it is amazing to be able to interact with people who put themselves out into, I guess, touching that void in a different physical space. And, they take a lot of heat from a lot of people, whether we fly, we don't fly to space, there is a moon, no moon, like all of that. And, but, is this color, that what color of green that is, to somebody is so different, that experience. And it's not about discounting, but living through the words of that person or through the feelings of that person and seeing what is this communication about. So, and discounting any experience, especially for children, when we're too quick to dismiss what they're seeing or what they're experiencing. And we're no different as adults. We have concepts and we almost stop our journey of exploration through that person's senses and limiting ourselves in that regard. So, the work that you do is allowing people to touch that void, that they may be not willing or forgotten or have never knew it existed. So it's about allowing that to be and traveling with that person, because there's a reason why it came into your space at this time, this person, this experience, this word. And although we don't talk about this, people, they are very much in the flow and they make these decisions, catching and touching these ideas, and they're very receptive, they're multi-talented, and they usually definitely play an instrument. They're polymaths, and they're actually willing to put their hands and mind and soul into anything. Like from pilots, they will fly, repair, uh, be a guide, be inspiring person for somebody else. And all of them joke, all of them work through this lifting the spirit in the most stressful situations. They're always lighting the space with spark and lifting the spirit, and then that's when we relax and they're able to sense. We can change the tone of conversation. We can change the tone of, let's say, a challenge. We can also, the seriousness narrows our mind. So it becomes what pilots or people working, even deep sea divers, it's a tunnel vision. So, and it's about recognizing. And when we become frozen in a way, so that frostiness comes in, and we experience this in our everyday life. And when I became a mother, I felt that this is probably the most extreme astronaut job, that if you wish, role that we are given, because we, as parents, not necessarily mothers, we lose sleep, we are on somebody else's schedule, we can't have a shower, we even can't go to the bathroom in the way that we usually do, and it's all kind of, all of our life is rewritten, and we are in a capsule of a different time space. And but yet, if we take this as a journey of exploration, and as it's an opportunity that we will never travel this path again, then that allows a new, fresh ether or awareness or opportunity, and it becomes like a grander game. And so that's where I see the comparison. And I saw that how much limiting concepts we have that do not allow us as adults, even in those extreme, professions who are highly trained, that there are barriers that we have to lower in order to take the next step. Yet the children have none of them, and they have the plethora of perception. And what I started to notice with my children is that my beliefs transferred to them, and then they never look that way. So that's kind of the crossover of going from astronauts to babies, and in a way they arrive here from another dimension, to be with us and offer us a different perspective. And yet we have an assumption that we're here to teach them. But it is interesting that they have an opportunity to offer us a different window, a different portal, and different perceptions. And from science, for example, we know that children by 6 months old start to specialize in a language. And what we know is that they become proficient in statistical analysis of probability. So they are actually at the university level of statistical analysis. And they know which sound, which letter, which word will come next. So they have a prediction algorithm, and they become to specialize in the language. And then they drop the other sounds, other potentiality, and they start to specialize in that linguistic path. And that happens not only in that realm, it happens in all of our perception. So we are actually all born, according to science, because we cannot measure it another way, as synesthetes, which are people who are able to perceive from multiple channels. Let's say we can see sound or feel sound, or we experience some sort of vibration, but it comes out as words, and there's 150 combination of crossing, for example, visual, audio, inner perception, taste, and science only just recognized this as not as imagination, but actually valid experience. And we seem to, in science, because we are unable to measure experience, we are unable to take it to the laboratory. And that's why we cannot take it further. But if we take that the world is, the experiential space, and we now can reach people and do citizen research, then we can become more aware of our capacity and capability. And many institutes now do that, which is amazing.
Talk to us about the universe, mankind's opportunity to pay attention more, maybe just to do basic listening. Who are we listening to?
I feel that the space that we live in is purposeful, and the earth is vibrating 24/7. We have sounds which we, for some reason, because we live in boxes, we have forgotten. But if we come to live to outside the city, or we go to nature, or we go camping, or maybe we go for vacation, and there is no blasting of music, and we're able to just hear the leaves or the palm trees, or we could hear the sound of how the sea or the water plays with the sand or the stones. And if we let that sound to come inside, it begins to actually almost, if you can imagine, when the sea comes in and it levels the water, levels the sand or the stones, and it allows to do the same within our body, within our mood, within our voice, with our everything. Or if you sit by the water and you feel it's washing over you, it's straightening and weaving everything into place on how it meant to be. And so as the earth rotates, it wakes various creatures on the earth as it turns. And it's a rhythm. There is a rhythm, there is a sound, and there is an order to that. And it's and if we can imagine our inner cells also turning inside of us, and they are exposed to different sounds in our body also. So we have a lot of rivers and mountains and various textures, and those sounds also keep our system in order. So for example, we know that it's not only our heart is responsible for pumping the blood, it's actually the vessels that also our that the variety or quality of them, that and the where the blood flows, it's the whole channel of where it's flowing, it's not solidly filled with the liquid, it's actually flowing in a spiral. And that spiral is also increasing the movement through turns and through how the vessels themselves contract. So, and we don't see that contraction and expansion because we were limited with our physical perception here, but sort of this micro macro is shown to us all the time. And that's why I'm talking about it doesn't matter what you study, music or engineering or biology, it's shown the pattern is exactly the same. And so apologies for dropping so many concepts together. But the sound that is we can hear almost regulates one part of the planet. With let's say crickets that are then coming down, so they would, let's say, they will persist in the night, and then the birds will come in the day, and then they will get quiet, and there will be this almost rhythm coming in and out from different creatures, and there is almost a resonance. You could, if you would put your hand, let's say, in the ocean, and you would feel the waves coming in. So these sounds will continuously come off the earth, but it will also level the earth with those sounds. So if we allow for the sounds to filter through us, they reflect in us as in water through vibration. And that's where I wanted for children to experience these sounds through water. So I wanted the sound to acquire different perceptual form. So this is a field called cymatics, and it's been for actually a lot of polymaths through history of human history have looked at how the sound forms through various elements, like through sand on surface or through water. And I wanted the children to acquire the language through various sensors, not just through audibly. And I bet they actually know it already. It's just because we don't pay attention, we forget as we grow up. But I wanted for adults, because we are, if you wish, the shepherds, or if we don't bring this into awareness, it's harder for our children to remember it and to remain with it. So the more of us will start to observe that, the more children will find it easier to remain with that quality of perception. And so by children would be looking at how the sound forms through water, which is a visual form, and it's not 2D, it's a 3D, because it is like a ball when it's shapes and when the sound comes through water. And all of them looks like mandalas. Yeah. And the books that I make for children, these are real shapes for that exist in nature. Mm. So this is a books for newborn children, and there is a text for adult. So the adult could be as joyful exploring these, and the child could look at these as well. Mm. And children are mesmerized, and they increase their attention span very quickly. Just because it actually resembles the laws that exist in our body and around us. And all of these mandalas, which are real creatures in the water, so this is like an underwater book, they exist in our body, and they also manifest through sound. They shape through sound. And I spoke to a friend of mine today, and she was saying, like, when you slice a fruit, you could see that those also circular, very regulated shapes. And if we can imagine that it's also the fruit is born as it's growing from a flower and a tree or a plant, if you can imagine, it is possibly shaped by sound that we don't perceive, and it allows for that particular form to be, whatever that may be. And it does have a different vibration, because if you slice it, you will see that through time it would have changed shape. And so if children can see the sound through how it sounds and then see it and also feel it, because there is a vibrational part to it, and perhaps they will have another perception that is not even detected or articulated by us. But then when they see the shapes that I just showed you that manifest physically, they might actually feel the vibration and hear the sound. So like we are doing the double tick, if you wish, we're looking at it as one source. And if we have this language of perception that it's not tied to linguistic expression, and that when we hear the sound of nature, which is very rhythmic and calming, and it's free and it's always available, and the earth has been persisting way before we were here, then what if that this will then connect us like the language does? You know, if I speak with you in English, we already have conceptual connection. But if we speak the native language and the native location, then we instantly, the veils are lifted, right? The barriers are lifted, because we relax into that common sense. Or maybe, in fact, we retract from it, you know, it doesn't matter. But there is this connection and a foundation. But these children will not have to have a linguistic or cultural foundation. They will have foundation for all of us that is one. And all traditions talk about being connected and being one. So I hope this just gives us another quality to investigate, rather than be dictated through books or through teachings, but through self-exploration, and become the researchers, not scientists, but explorers, you know, the investigators through our old tool set.
Vida Austin in New Zealand is an October 2024 guest of the APL show, and she studies consciousness in water, having had a couple of near-death experiences. A well-known Vida, Veda, Austin, like the city in Texas, Vida Austin in New Zealand. She had a couple of near-death experiences. One was very well documented, known, I think, nationally in New Zealand, where she was the only survivor, if I got that right, in a large piece of machinery falling on a car. Many surgeries, maybe 26 or so, incredible journey there, but also drowned, and a few hours of time missing, where the New Zealand Coast Guard's only explanation is she must have washed up early on a rock and unconsciously clung to the rock, but hours went by, and that's not her memory. And she did die, or at least drown, or whatever. The hours went by. But here she takes objects and sets them on petri dishes, if I've got this right, of water. And the water has its own unique qualities to it, that it takes on different patterns, close to mandalas, if whether you put a feather or another object, and that there's some sort of a transferal of energy. And that's something that people can check out. Masuro Emoto, if I said the name right, the Japanese fellow who's since passed over. It would be an extension of that, but beyond the prior research. So it's very akin to what you're talking about. Not so much necessarily about the sound vibration, although I'd argue that it probably is all sound at one level. It's all vibration. So I wanted to somehow mention that. Talk to us a little bit more about consciousness, awareness, no limits, love. I'm trying to describe everything here. Timelessness. What else? Yeah, just openness, the connection to all there is in the universe. And then there's thinking. We can call that anything you want. Density, limits, time, and lots of other stuff. It's a lot more, all the fun parts of life, even when you're discovering something. You're in a lab, or when you're giving a speech and you had a blast. You actually didn't worry about the speech. You knew you had this. The crowd loved it. You're getting a standing ovation. And afterwards, you had the best time talking with people. That happened when you're here. Talk to us about the difference between here and here. When did it kick in for you? Has it always been there? Can you talk about a sea change moment where you got back to your heart You've been doing too much adulting in your life. Any which way you want to describe all this.
That's a beautiful concepts that I weave together. Well, I think children really wake us up, and or at least there is something that came to my awareness that there are different qualities of love. So, and I'm not talking about, like agape and various types, but it's more about on how this love and connection is manifesting that we could investigate for each and every one of us. And I found that through parenting, it's helpful to have almost like a retreat in motherhood. I guess that's the closest I could put it, because I'm not a father. So one example that comes to mind is that when we are with a loved one, it doesn't have to be a child. It could be a pet, it could be an experience that we have, or it could be a personal appreciation that we are with. And but with children, it's to me, it's like nobody could describe to me what it is like to be a parent. And in fact, I can't explain it to somebody else, because it has so much dimension that they're not visible to me still. I'm still exploring all of that. And it also manifests so differently for everyone. But all of these, you find out that this is also love. This is also another perspective. And then they show you something else, and you're thinking like, well, I didn't see that one coming. and then you would rest in that, and it's something bigger opens for you. And for example, if we're looking onto our children and we are looking at them play, and we are melting in that space, if we allow ourselves to be with them rather than rushing, to do all the daily tasks or work, in between, or looking after that we need to be doing. And there is nothing that we will not do for that person. And we are wholly wrapping that space, that protectiveness around that being, that person, that energy, if you wish. And there is so much, we're like a cupola that if we could go under the earth, that we would be complete sphere for that person or for that being that we are caring about. And then we completely forget that actually, because we talk about this, grand design being repeated over and over, that there is the same grand design, if you wish, enveloping us. So in the same, if we imagine that we are molecule in a molecule, that we have exactly the same, and probably unimaginably greater the wrapping of, or encompassing us and feeling and penetrating us like a multidimensional carpet, like if you can dive into the carpet tapestry. So it is weaved throughout. So children allow us to just for a moment suspend that there is something that all of our concepts, and allow that there is bigger, greater awareness surrounding all of us in the same way that we are offering forward, because the repetition or the fractality of all of this exists. And we see this in nature. We're able now to perceive this through science, and there is a Buddha brought, there's a mathematical calculations of how things are repeated. We could see this in trees and flowers, in our lungs. And so we explore those dimensions on how they feel to people through the course, which is kind of a retreat in motherhood. So instead of trying to go somewhere to retreat, we bring this to our daily life, because that was my feeling through childhood, is that I couldn't run away to a monastery, no matter how much I wanted to live in somewhere in Tibet or China or Nepal when I was, a teenager. There was no such possibility, and understood that I just have to do this here in this space. So, and although I, disappear from that awareness and then come in again, there's a rhythm to it from when I come in from refreshed look. And so children allowed me to explore these through everyday kind of routine, what it seems like, but that moments of life then don't escape. And you can create this library of sensual, perceptual experiences that you embed them rather than read about them in a tradition or a physical book or go to a retreat to experience it once. But you can discover this through self-inquiry, which is a lot of practices, traditional practices are about that. Nobody, so, ideally we want a pill, we want someone to touch us and transfer us all of this knowledge, we're looking for the guru, although the guru is in everything, it's weaved, and this is what I guess I'm looking for, these qualities to show through these pictures, so that people can find what they like. And the reason I started to work on these books is so for newborn children and the family that surrounds them, is so that we can explore through interest of a parent. So if I'm let's say, marine biologist, I will pick up this book and I will share this, fascination that I have, and the child will feel it. And you don't need to read baby books, read your marine biology journals for them to fall asleep, because they will feel your curiosity and your fascination, and they will fall to that rather than through a story that you are not interested, and they will know. So, explore through your curiosity that powerful vibration that you navigate your focus of attention. And that's where the most amazing things open up. So share that feeling, with your loved ones. They don't need to understand the scientific words or whatever you're interested in, as long as you are interested in, and these are also qualities of exploration that are with excitement. And if we touch them and transfer them through our experience, the child then remains in that quality of exploration, and so do we. And the communication starts to morph and grow into something like a joint mission, I don't know, of exploration, which actually doesn't go anywhere but within.
Love it. I have 3 quotes for you. One from a NASA astronaut, an India quote from probably 1,000 years ago, but I'm not sure. And then a Star Wars quote. Whichever way you'd like to react to these quotes or take us somewhere, you will. Story Musgrave, NASA astronaut, once said, "Getting out of the comfortable path, that's what exploration is all about."
Yes.
And,
yes.
and I have 2 more for you. Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars said to Luke, "Luke, you are going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend on our own point of view." And the last quote is Siddha Katrapa said, "Whatever the yogin sees is his instruction, and realization that all he sees is unborn. That is the most excellent guru. Innocence is the way to realize non-duality, for here the effects of virtue and vice are one." Can you talk to us about all 3 very different quotes, but all intersecting in a way with what you just spoke about?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Michael, you are at the heart of it all. So, yes, absolutely. So it is about letting go of all the concepts. So it is landing in the moment and letting the space unravel. And that's what the exploration is about. And that childhood innocence that we all possess, but for some reason we feel like we need to put a hat and wear a suit. And we can conceptualize it in terms of our knowledge or perception, but I guess the more sort of the more veils that we can lift, the more just pure awareness of being in the moment. And that's what children, I guess, give us, that innocence, and they are really soaking it in without judgment. So you can talk to your baby, about anything, and they will listen, with great interest, whatever you have to tell them. And they, in fact, you could cry and be distraught and could be very calm and relaxed or joyful. They will listen with the same intent. And I think that's the practice. So that's the practice that we learn of observation without judgment and coming in without preconception. And then we teach, of how you should be listening and how you should be walking into the room. And then we lose the connection.
Mankind operates with a lot of thinking, logos, reason, intellect. What am I missing? Knowledge that precludes possibility. That seems to be the big currency these days. This isn't meant to be cynical in any way or judgmental in any way. I think mankind has always had a earth is flat sort of approach to everything. Even back in the days when the earth was flat, that would have made more sense. And a new group came along and there was just no way it was round. Can you talk to us about the openness thing, that there is knowledge that's universal knowledge? The only way I know how to flip this pancake is to say, from my experience, anybody can get any answer to any question, all languages spoken, all dialects, with humor from the universe. How many people are willing to really listen seems to be sometimes down to a handful at any given second on the globe. But I think it's in the thousands, tens of thousands. And I think in the future, mankind will pay attention to do a lot more listening. And the only quote I have is from Archangel Uriel 10 years ago. If more people would listen, less conflict would arise in any given situation. But we don't have to be talking just conflict. Just listening is something beyond even linear or words. It's what you were alluding to or talking about. Can you try to handle this eternal question for mankind? When are we going to pay attention more? When are we going to open up and just practice a little more gentleness, kindness, compassion, love, a little less thinking? I think another angel said 7% less thinking a day is the Olympic gold medal for all of us. And if, again, we flip another pancake, that 7% less thinking is just 7% being in the heart more, or just being, taking a breath, smiling, relaxing, hanging out with kids. What's your reaction to all that? You've got a kinder, gentler way to phrase it all, because everyone's still learning, whether we know it or not, on this planet.
I think it's very helpful to arrive to the point when we don't have an internal dialogue of trying to convince ourselves. So as soon as that rises, we off the track. Well, that's how I feel. So let's say a decision has to be made for a pilot or people that I've seen who make decisions. There is no right or wrong about it. It is the way to go. There is no conversation. There is no arguing or considering other options. It is, you kind of become still in the moment, and you don't need to prove to anybody anything. And that's when our awareness comes in, and I feel that this is an opening of where we can actually get all the answers. Because as soon as we're trying to justify or read, a lot of literature, and then we are unable to feel into it. And it's good to read, and converse and listen. But then how do we resonate when we don't need any more justification? And it's that moment when we become quiet, and that's the inner truth, that we're not trying to go and prove that we are right. And that's the essence or the core, or the truth is not the right word, because there is an antithesis to that. But it's something that we don't have an internal dialogue to say this is the right thing to do, or we are listening to somebody and we we are in tune and there is no justification for the next step. And I think that's an opening of when there's a recognition, that's the essence, because in a sense, there will be no worse than if we are truly listening and we don't need to prove to somebody else what we're still trying to prove to ourselves. Because when we go out to prove it, we're actually still trying to prove it to ourselves because we're not comfortable. But when the commander, let's say, makes a decision and that commander is chosen because of their connection, with the team and with the entire space, so they're natural, in that role. They are feeling and sensing an entirety of it, although we don't describe it like that. There is no, there is a belief that, although I think that might be another way of doing it, but right now we're all together and doing it this way. There might be another truth or another essence that will unwrap, and we think that would be completely wrong in the future. But it's almost irrelevant because, the tree grows, the leaves fall, and there's a new truth, new growth. And we kind of seem to stuck to say that there is only one truth. But I studied Korean medicine, and our professor Park Shivu was saying that there's always at least 4 truths. And it just depends.
Ananda Mayama once said, I think everyone is right. I've never met anybody who says on a Tuesday, I'm going out to work and I'm going to waste as much of my energy as I can. I want to be wrong all week. And I've never met anybody who's going to do that for 2 weeks, 2 months, or the rest of the year ever. In fact, in fantasy football, for example, everyone is correct. They have the best team until their scores and standings say otherwise. A couple more quotes. Angels once said, probably 10 years ago, there is no right or wrong. There's proper understanding. I would add probably that's love, or whatever flow we're referring to that's broader than us, but that's within us, connecting us all. And lastly, here's an Native American quote that's beautiful. Might have come from Carl Hammerschlag's book, Dancing Healers. He was a Yale graduated doctor turned later psychologist, so he sort of doubled. Beautiful gentleman who passed away 2 or 3 years ago, who realized he had more to learn after graduating from medical school than he didn't know anything about healing, even though he graduated from Yale. In American society, we think something is happening when there's talking. In Native American tribes, something is happening when there is silence. How much further do we have to go? Do you think mankind is ready for a little more consciousness, a little more love? Are you noticing people paying attention more? Are you taking heart with what you're witnessing?
I think, well, you see, there is an intellectual component to that. I think this quietness, that you talked about is the most powerful teacher. So I think if we come to a meeting place when we meet together and we actually spend time in silence to start with, it would be a good tradition rather than trying to put things on the table and negotiate. And it feels like more and more people are aware that what we're trying to put forward is actually an inner construct that we're trying to negotiate ourselves. And if we go to traditions to say that we are all one to a degree, then that is really a reflection of what we're trying to work with right now. And this concept seems to be now prevailing through many books and through many talks. And we see that through science. And to maybe be more fascinated with this curiosity, which science meant to be driven by, rather than trying to prove the point and saying that today the science is right, but more like taking it as a journey and putting this analogy into all fields, from our internal neighborhood kind of discussion to our family, to city, countries, the globe. Then if we think that this is all an exploration, so when we're meeting each other and it feels like there is more and more of that comes into awareness. So I just I'm hopeful that we will gain an introspection from contact, whatever contact we have. Then, and it's actually that inner communication which I'm feeling that would be helpful to tap in through this design of this language that I'm working through, the sound of the earth, like leaving patterns, emerging in all fields, and allowing for that resonance to feel that without articulating, but it's almost tuning us to a particular state. And a lot of people feels like looking for practices to tune into a particular state and to be or navigate those internal states. And I think that's where we would be good to begin, I guess, is to tune into the state wherever we come in that quietness of the native tradition.
Can you reference the video? You sent me an interview that was incredible, and you were spot on a lot of stuff. There was the video of the 3 crickets and the sound, and then the human touch coming in. Can you reference that video so people could check it out? I will find the link and put it below the video. Is that something you can reference for us on air right now?
So this talk was specifically for a course for Professor Diana Pasolka on her course called UFOs and UAPs, like a history, which she takes a really beautiful look because she records the interviews with people, and it's like a living video book. She published America Cosmic, and she published the book Encounters, which has also been taken, or she consulted on the Netflix series called Encounters. And so this allows for Diana and her colleague David to enrich that space and allowed for people to communicate, because the phenomena, whatever it may be, people have again different perceptions. And I think this unidentified flying objects, which used to be referred, but and now it's called unidentified anomalous phenomena, so as to include a broader spectrum. And we experience this in a different way. And that course or that space allows for all concepts to float without putting judgment on it too early. And Diana steps into historical accounts of our, religious history, where these experiences could be described as UFOs or UAPs, because of how people talk about it, what the experience is, because that was Diana's experience when she walked in by advice of her colleague, and she was very resistant as an academic to go to a UFO conference, because he said, well, these things that you wonder about seems to be happening now as well. They're not just in religious history. And when she walked in and she felt like it's true, people using the same language to describe it. It's just that we have a different concept to put around it. And so I'm contributing to Diana's class and talking about the perception on how we seem to discount the human experience and looking for metal, that we are looking just for one perceptual, physical perceptual touch. But the communication might be on a very different level. And it's not about, a ship landing and a communication happening, let's say, in a form that is envisioned in film. And there are also other actually beautiful sci-fi, like a film Solaris, that talks about experiential component of this field of energy that they arrive in. And they seem to relieve, like as if in a dream, that the loved ones come back who have passed away, and they keep coming back, although they die. And it's almost that energy is trying to understand why we're longing so much, and why is it so difficult and treacherous. And you cannot communicate that love and connection and strength without living through it. So it's almost like the level of communication is putting us through the ropes of experiencing it so it can understand. So it's beyond words. And so I'm touching in that, or making a path for exploration for all of us to consider that all of our experiences, sensors, thoughts, perceptual channels, and the connotation of what we consider experience is actually communication. And it's sort of like when we look backwards, we assume things make sense. But maybe through the entirety of our human history, all of it is a communication. It's one script. And we are to work together. And I think that's what we are doing, more and more of us, by connecting and putting these puzzles in our sensors and experiences together to actually have a broader awareness and tapping into and feeling that essence where we no longer need to argue with ourselves or others that we are right. And I think that's the arrival in resting in that state. And that's actually why I want to go into sound of nature, because sound of nature tunes us into a particular state. So what if the sound of whales or sound of dolphins, which I've been fortunate to swim in the wild with, and you feel, and they have a structure that allows for that wave to come through. So what if that sound sets your body into a particular state, and that's the message? It's not sort of, there's a NASA scientist, will come to me, who wrote the film, the Pale Blue Dot book, Carl Sagan. And he then, they made a film Contact about it. And he also commented that we taught the dolphins 50 human words to be used in context, but no human speaks Dolphinese. So it's sort of like we have an assumption that there is only one way to communicate. But through your work as well, there's many ways to perceive and sense and to, and sometimes we don't need to say it, we just know it. And that's enough.
I'll light a little bit of sage, but I'll try to cover 13 years of my experience here, helping people just open up and receive whatever they'll allow for. That's any answers, again, any questions, all languages, all dialects, lots of humor. Everything is Burger King, 1980s commercial, have it your way. You're Catholic, you're from India, you get it your way. Close your eyes and it gets even better. But I asked a big picture question once of an angel named Dale, who coached an Olympic athlete. We would know their name from the 80s, 70s, won a lot of golds. How fast, if mankind was really keen on peace, love, expansion, just walking a smoother path globally, how fast could mankind really go quick on the uptake? 3 hours was the answer. 3 hours, which is pretty incredible, because on another show this past week, I was like, do I think in 3 hours from now, we're going to have arrived in a broader understanding, be a lot more peace, war could just go ahead and stop. Let's use our resources better and just be more relaxed and loving. It's been 13 years. So what have I learned is a couple of things. Where you put your focus is where you put your focus. Totally safe. I love it. How you spend your energy is how you spend it. And then angels exist, or beings of love, and just allow for it. And a lot will happen. So set your intent, let a little bit of fun happen. I'm going to light some sage in just a second. I still had one more thing. Instead of asking who killed Kennedy or any of the big picture or eternal questions, I had an angel show up in a Starbucks in Northwest Austin in human form. And I asked, did she drink the coffee when she was staring at me meeting my book editor? She was in her 50s, elegant as heck, Santa Fe, New Mexico garb. I don't even know what that is, except it doesn't exist in Texas. So she stood out like a sore thumb. There's 20 different groups in Austin, and I've moved 25 to 40 something times. This woman stood out. She's facing the wrong way, drinking her coffee, staring the whole time. And the answer is yes, they drink the coffee when they're here in human form. That's the best I can do for adding my 2 cents to the conversation. So catch some sage. People have watched this show. I've only forgotten twice because I was so enthusiastic about the guests. I think Vinny Adams was one. Maybe I forgot to do anything. He did tons of stuff off camera. He was amazing. He's coming back on the show. Love him to death. But there were two people that they gave great interviews. It just wasn't going to be in their vocabulary, their lexicon, to want to catch some sage through two screens. But I've taped 300 or 235 shows, and I've done this as a guest on 75 shows. So my only advice is just give yourself a break. It's your schnogginer, it's your heart. Ask the universe, angels to step in, get you out of your head into your heart and have more fun. That is uniform. Let's make an adverb out of it. That you can use in a uniform way to have a cup of tea, go for a walk, pet your dog, hug your kid. Think about thinking this way. You can think about mowing your lawn, or you can just be in your heart and enjoy it. Put the music in. You won't hit the flower bed. You'll do it in half the time. Yeah, We've done this before, but allow for a little bit of sage. Some people start catching it as it's just lit. Let me know when you catch sage, and why settle for ho-hum? Not that sage isn't amazing. You can catch sage, flowers, and ocean. Triple tier tiramisu, no calories. And are you catching a little sage yet?
Feeling the wave, just up air.
I didn't do it. We're going to blame the universe. Don't blame Canada. Okay. And so, Ia, getting any flowers as well. You got to make the request, set your intent. This applies to anything. You're about to go for a run. You're not really into it, or the gym. Name anything. Vacuuming. Hey, can you get me into my groove just to feel like vacuuming could be the coolest thing for the next 20 minutes and shave 5 minutes off? We're not used to, as humans, asking for much on the lighter side of the picture. It's easier to judge or decide on this or put labels on that, or to know in a way that precludes possibility. Are you catching any flowers?
I feel it in my hands as, like when you touch the fire and it's got the sparkle in it.
Ooh.
It's like that.
That counts. Okay, I'm going to snub this out. I'll put up one angel photo. And maybe someone else. We'll figure out who that is. And we'll get back to interviewing. Here's an angel. Oh, interdimensional stuff. You could close your eyes and just sit, see yourself on a beach, or at least see others with you on the beach. And how many minutes? 5 minutes of our time could be half an hour interdimensionally. What will you allow for? Hawaii, Tibet? You want to go somewhere else? That's in the future, or in the cards for humans. Here's an angel named Joy, or just a loving being who's conscious. She's an ambassador, communicator to help us let go. You can ask for flowers from her. Does she have a message for us all, or are you getting a reminder of anything at your end? Or just what are you getting sensory wise?
I just feel like expansion in the heart, like expansion in the heart, like almost like a pulsing.
I love it. And one more figure. I'll do a figure from India, but I don't know which one. Oh, Ananda Mayama. She's huge love, just really gentle. Don't know much more about her. I am at the Wikipedia level of all this. I don't know anything. But here's Ananda Mayama. You should be able to feel it, and this should be a message of love for us all.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who wants to catch Indian temple incense, like, you don't have to go to India and be at the temple to catch this very rare incense in the air. Anybody who wants to let go and breathe, I'll tell one dad joke. What's the only flower found on the human face? Tulips. Although someone said iris the other day, and they were correct too. And what are you getting from Ananda Mayama?
It's almost like a plane of light, like a dimension of light unraveling sort of from, experiencing through my ears, and also through sort of like just very smooth light from very one plane, actually, not 3D, but, well, it is 3D, but meaning that it is not, it's a thin layer. Like, sometimes you feel a fog and you see that covering the ground like that.
I love it. So I'll do one last exercise. We'll show light. I'll put up a piece of black construction paper for the background, but blue sky is fantastic. And I would argue that everyone is seeing light on everything. It's just energy. You go to get milk at the supermarket, and two gentlemen are arguing heatedly in some conversation or discussion. And you're like, well, you know what? I'll just go get the vegetables first. Anyhow, it's refrigerated. I'll come back. They'll be gone, and that'll all clear out. I don't need to deal with that and say, excuse me. So you go to get the vegetables, you got your avocados and peppers, you go back, they're gone, you get your milk, you check out. You're reading all that. I think people call it a navigational system, whatever. This is a chance just to see it. After this, we'll do a few quotes from maybe Einstein or Eckhart Tolle to get you back on track for reminding us so much what you're here to remind us of. And then we'll wrap it up in a little bit. You'll be hopefully back on the show anytime you'd like, and we'll get that squared away as well. This right now is just seeing a little bit of consciousness light, the Force from Star Wars. The movie was Celestine Prophecy. where they show it. But somebody who was a guest in the 70s said that they were doing this in the 70s, and in India they do it this way. So whatever people will see and allow for, fantastic.
Mm.
And here's two fingers and a very willing demonstrator. Just see a little filament of light between my fingers. Breathe extra if you need to. Put a hand on your heart if you think you need extra help. Ask the universe to step in and be in your heart so you see with all of you. And you'll see a filament of light between my fingers. Is it pink, gold, green, yellow? If it's rainbow colors, go out and buy a lotto ticket. Definitely pause this video and buy a lotto ticket. And be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and share. Io, what are you seeing between my fingers? Are you seeing a flow at all?
Oh, I feel the motion. I feel the motion of the fingers. Maybe it's sort of it's like it's more of a, yeah, exactly that. Yeah. It's more of a I guess I'm more visceral in the perception, so I could describe it as qualities. So there's a thickening of connection.
I'm going to pick, and beautiful. I'm going to pick three random quotes from a very big, like 25 pages of quotes from everybody from Herman Melville. Hopefully, we're not getting him to Plato, to anybody else. Actually, Herman Melville quotes aren't bad. Here's three. We're going to do a Winnie the Pooh because you got to do Winnie the Pooh. Okay.
What about Little Prince?
I don't have Little Prince in here, but maybe one. We'll see. Some people talk to animals, Winnie the Pooh. Some people talk to animals. Not many listen, though. That's the problem. That's the problem. And I would add that's the opportunity for growth for us all. And I think that was even in the video you referenced. I mean, you were really like, if we would only pay attention more to even our littlest and greatest animals on the planet, we would learn so much. Next, the only source of knowledge is experience. Einstein. Of course, we had to get Einstein in here. I love that. The only source of knowledge is experience. Whoa. And then finally, no, I can't do another Einstein. Oh, I will. We shall require a substantially new manner of thinking if mankind is to survive. Let's end with a positive one. Here's an anonymous one. Your reality mirrors your perspective. As you allow, with a capital A, so grows your compassion for all. Want change? Merely change how you choose to view. Okay, what's your reaction to all those, from Winnie the Pooh to Einstein, etc.?
Oh, it touches on our conversation. At least it feels to me that these are not coincidental. And so we talked about that experiences where we find that inner essence quality of deeper knowing, which we don't need to try to justify. And that's where I found through experts where they make the right decision for that specific time. And the beautiful idea of Winnie the Pooh, it's true. So it's exactly what Carl Sagan said, is that we're trying to teach them to speak our language, but we're not listening at all. And I feel like maybe I can contribute a little bit. And it seems like more people want to contribute to that we can learn to listen, not necessarily just with our ears, but expand our perceptual field and just navigate that space and get it into our vocabulary of that it is also language.
If you wanted to reassure everyone that their heart is the only connection that they truly need, they've never missed a step, skipped a beat, lost anything at their peak period of their life. High school football team throwing 6 touchdowns in that game, to the prom, to that second career that they had, getting accolades, they were the top salesman and whatever. That emotion, you can be happy now in this very moment for no reason whatsoever. Can you reassure us that our heart truly is incredible and unlimited?
I think that's the point of discovery, is to find that quality. I can only offer opportunities of how I've experienced it, or tap into how we can touch that. But I think the the reassurance comes from within through experience, which we were just talking about, which is greater than knowledge, or that's the knowledge that we can actually share. It stays then.
Last question for me, and we'll have you wrap this up. We might have one more tiny experiential thing we've never discussed. It's super easy, done it on other shows. But if we look at the UAP UFO crowd, for example, there is a lot of thinking going on, a lot of judging. It has to be that way. Paper trails, who did what? What's the truth? A lot of seeking and searching, but it's not necessarily a lot of looking up to the skies and engaging. That doesn't mean there aren't plenty of folks who aren't doing that and inviting the universe to come in. Can you just talk to us about how maybe it's neither here nor there? Again, it's back to the heart somehow. I keep going back to the heart. Can you talk to us again about where our true opportunity to expand is? And of course, we have to do science. We have to prove it. We have to have this. We have to have that on paper or through words or intellect or facts and science and data. But can you talk to us about that dichotomy a little bit, here and here?
Well, I think it's an opportunity to tap into our inner resources. So that's why I think the phenomena comes to us in many forms. And it's almost, it is a knocking to touch us. So because pilots that I speak with, they talk about before and after, and a lot of the, I guess, experiences that transform us, or it becomes like a juncture or a fractal for our next attention where we divert in our search. It allows this pivotal point. So whether you are more inclined to follow technology, you're more inclined to politics or paper trails, or maybe you are now have been very technical, but that turned you onto more sensorial perception. And I think it's almost like it allows us to explore our potential, and we open up a little and more. And I'm just now corresponding with the space scientist who is saying that I've never thought of that being kind of in my vocabulary. And then I heard an interview with a pilot, and then they said that really opened up my awareness, and I start looking in. And they're now talking about this spirituality aspect, which is the word, I guess maybe it's overused, but we're exploring our other perception. And what Diana Pasulka does, Professor Diana Pasulka, she's studying how do people change belief systems, how do they acquire it. So, and in essence, the religion has that, or traditions have that, and they allow us to experience this through rituals, to tap into our perception when we go from childhood to adulthood, from being a woman to a motherhood, and so on. So it's these junctions, and these are just other potential for navigating. But I wouldn't discount it. And I think it's important that all of us, whether we're technical, spiritual, sensorial, belief system explorers, that we allow we are meant, I feel like we are to build a puzzle and learn to communicate with each other. And it's kind of, that's the point. It's just to unite us to one topic. So then we can touch on from there.
Brilliant. Everyone's good where they are right now. But if the puzzle is over on a table, it's a dark room, lots of people are creating flashlights or handing out flashlights so people can actually get over to the puzzle, put a few missing pieces in. And I would argue that everything you're experiencing always points back to the heart if you'll simply allow, get out of the brain a little, only an extra 7% of the day. I got a calculator out 4 times, and I still can't remember how much that is out of 24 hours. 7% less thinking a day. I think it's between an hour and a half and 2 hours and 16 minutes. So we're talking, just put your feet up, go for a walk, do nature, stuff like that. Last exercise for you. It's a little bit like the light that we did, or feeling the light. I'm just going to put my hand up in Texas. You're in the UK, and you'll put your hand up with your permission. Only love and above, the highest intent, not my bill paying side or my thinking side. I'm going right back to thinking after this show. I don't know about anybody else, but please like, subscribe, and put a comment in about how great IYA has been, what you've enjoyed most, and what resonated most. Comments are great. It gets other people the chance to also look at this video. But with your permission, I'll put my hand up, only the highest intent. You might feel sparkle, warmth. My hand's feeling hot. I'll say it out loud. What are you feeling?
I actually feel freshness,
Okay.
you know,
And now
like
this hand, I'm going to whoosh universal rainbow light, love, not me. It's blaming, the big universe of love. Here it comes. You'll get it 3 times, little, medium, and high. Allow for what you can allow for. You might get a whoosh on your back. People get all sorts of different stuff. I've got a microphone down here. I'll blow. So I'll look like this. I'm blowing, but it'll be a little Hawaii too. You might catch ocean. People at home can really let go because no one's watching you at home. You've got privacy. Poor Ia's in front of us all experiencing this. Here comes a little bit. So sandbag it and feel what you can feel. Did you get a little bit of energy?
yes, pressure and more on the bone structure, like with kind of almost like an oval shape.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And then
thank you.
medium, just allow for 1% of 1% more. That's good enough. Letting go is letting go. Here we go. And if you want to catch Hawaii in the air this time, ocean breeze, there's no way you're not in Hawaii.
I just feel a further sensation, so further up the forearm, um, and more into the fingers. So like that.
Beautiful. And the third time's the charm. Go big, go home. I think you're already home. So let's go big. Same thing for folks at home. If you have a personal request on a certain area of your life, just ask for the universe to come in with a little more energy. You got to phrase it your way. What will you allow for is the daily rub for us all. So forget angels, the universe, consciousness, and the big stuff. What are you allowing for? Did you go for a walk yesterday? Did you hug your dog when you were supposed to hug your dog, which is pretty much 24/7? Okay, here comes a bigger bit of love. And Ia, how was that?
It felt not directed at the hand. It felt directed like that. So it felt more whooshing. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, whatever we just did, it's always bigger than we think it is because it's not about thinking. That was my closing to the show. You have a much better closing because you've done this a lot. You've interacted with so many amazing people. You've had an incredible bunch of different careers, and I don't even know what's ahead for you. I'm very excited to keep in touch and to have you back on the show. What would you like to leave us as a reminder with? Is there a mantra? Could it fit on a t-shirt, or do you need 2 t-shirts front and back? What's the reminder for us all as we go forward on this thing called life, our journey?
A listening. Sort of, it is a listening. It's learning to be quiet, but it's not about quieting outside. It's about a quiet perception without concept. So listening without concept.
Brilliant. Dr. Ia Whiteley, thank you for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love. A total joy, treat, pleasure to have you on.
I'm so grateful. Thank you, Michael, for reaching out and also spending so much time before the show in tuning in and discussing and experiencing what your work is like. It's beautiful that you make these connections for people. Thank you.
Thank you. You gave me goosebumps up and down. So thank you very much. Ia, we'll see you back on the show again in the future.
Thank you. Thank you to the audience as well.